Hi. In this module, we're going to be we're talking about metacognition, and then particularly this PowerPoint, we're looking at the tool, annotation tool called text coding, where we're basically thinking about note taking, but not with words, but more with symbols. So components of text coding is first and foremost is a visual form of annotating, which means taking notes, and a visual form of taking notes on text. So it's using just quick symbols to represent ideas. And then, but importantly, it provides students with a quick and powerful means to monitor. Remember, the important part of metacognition is the monitoring. So it provides students a powerful means to monitor thinking while reading. But it also lessens the quote time away. Oftentimes, my students will talk about regular note taking as this too takes them away from the text too much. So then they have to get, once they've got that sense of metacognitive awareness and they're monitoring, they're engaging with the text, they're being active readers, then, but the act of writing and note taking often takes them away. And so then now they're busy recording, which is a different process. So now when they come back, they have, it's mental switch gears. So then text coding, because it's usually very quick, it's symbolic, it's right there, then lessens the time away. So then students stay within the text much more completely. And so then they're able to monitor and keep moving much better than with typical note taking. So an important element is text codes represent visually what active readers do. It might be asking questions, thinking about what's important, making connections to key ideas. It might be noticing new words. It might be making personal connections, thinking what's important. So these are some of the things that I mentioned here. So this is, hyperlinked to a note-taking site, so please use. But the idea is that we have different ways, and the circle, squares, exclamation points, question marks, asterisks, and you're going to see a couple different examples in a minute. But the codes themselves are less important than what they represent. So text codes can be created individually or with a class, and usually in younger grades, they're done as a collective class. Now, in physical education and health, that may be less the case. Health can still happen, but having a sense of visual representations. So this is important because when we think about note taking, one of the things that may resonate with you is, and particularly happened with most of my students who were struggling readers as adolescents, is they highlighted the bejesus out of a text because they didn't know what was important. So they assumed everything was important. So then, because everything's important, they highlighted it. So it looked like some of these images where everything's highlighted. And with everything's highlighted, it's you can't no longer visually differentiate what's important. And part of this is back to dual coding, is helping the brain process much more quickly key ideas so that it can free up space for other information that might take more work. So here are a couple of variations on different text codes. Again, what matters is not so much the codes themselves, the symbols. Normally you would, it's like, and you would see more responses from me from written responses with asterisk and exclamation points, question marks. Usually when I'm responding to students and have a lot more writing, then you'll see me actually use those on a regular basis. So we have some examples like, I know this, the X for this is not what I expected or contradicts what I already know, asterisk for this is important, I have a question about this, or I'm really super confused. I would usually put, if that was the case, an question mark, exclamation mark, question mark. This one has an exclamation for this surprised me, this is really interesting. L for learned, R something I need to reread. Very simple here. Question, something I don't get. This, we have a emoji face. This makes me connection to something. An asterisk, something that's important. And huh, That would be sometimes I would write. Well, sometimes I still do with my doctoral students. Huh? I'm confused here. So, and so then we have, now we, on this third sample, we have even an eye. So we sometimes, so how visual is up to the individual into the class. So you know that there are some similarities. Usually question marks represent questions. Sometimes frequently exclamation parts, something interesting, exciting. Asterisks usually represent something that's important. So we get some of those overlapping ideas. But what is important is a couple of different things. Is note the format here is that a couple of teachers have now made these into bookmarks. A lot of different teachers will make bookmarks so that it reminds students so they have a quick and easy reference while they're reading. And the next slide, we're going to see some anchor charts, which refers to class created and agreed upon information that then goes up on walls for easy reference. So whether it's bookmarks, anchor charts, or whether they're individually created or class created, lots of variations, but the ideas is these are things that active readers consider. And then we have visual codes that represent what active readers do. So here is a couple examples of class anchor charts. So where one is, they're talking about leaving tracks of our thinking. So again, exciting information, important is an asterisk, confusion, question marks, etc. And here we have, some text language of LOL. Again, asterisk for important. We have a heart for favorite. A looks like a speech bubble for makes it predict, but in this case, they're on post-it notes, so that the post-it notes are actually then left in the text, and then students aren't actually writing the book, but writing on post-it notes. But regardless, it's they're showing their thinking, it's monitoring, and the idea of quote unquote leaving tracks is so that monitoring and there's evidence of the monitoring continues. In physical education and health, we talk about metacognition and cueing, particularly related to critical elements of motor skills and tasks when you're breaking it down. But metacognition is also important when we think about self-reflection and assessments. What goals are important here? How well am I doing this task? What can I do to improve? That's metacognition and action, even if it's not necessarily text coding. But text coding does work, and is very powerful dealing with health, because health is much more text-based. Then we have the importance of self-regulation, where you can discuss as a class and create relevant text codes that would be important for health. So there might be other particular disciplinary codes that connect to health. So it might be something that's more scientific. So if there are terms related to nutrition, metabolism, or trans fats, something that might be connected, or that deals with science, so then they can see the connections. And so then they can apply the text coding tools to readings. Maybe so that would be part of, is that these text codes can be more general, or we can create more specific ones to the discipline that represents key ideas to the discipline, in this case, health. So I hope that gives you some ideas to think about related to both metacognition and text codes and support of your students.